As a big fan of the Xenoblade series, I knew that at one point I would have to play the black sheep of the franchise, that is, Xenoblade Chronicles X. While the game received positive critical reception and is praised by its relatively small fanbase, I have always been kinda scared by the idea of playing this game, and that's for a few reasons. The first is that I started the series with the Definitive Edition, and up to that point, the oldest and most dated Xenoblade game I had played was Xenoblade 2. While Xenoblade 2 is by no means bad, I had still found Xenoblade 2 to be a step back from Definitive Edition in many ways, so I had feared that Xenoblade X would be even more of a step back. I thought it would just be better to wait out for a definitive version of Xenoblade X on the Switch, where they could hopefully make the game even more convenient to play than Xenoblade 1. And this whole thing is ironic, considering that at some point during the series, I am going to be going back and playing Xenogears, which is quite literally an unfinished game, but let's not worry about that right now. The second is that the game looked super confusing to me. Even though I have hundreds of hours across the entire series and know a lot about all games' combat systems, I still felt overwhelmed by the scout combat, overdrive, and the sheer amount of customization you could do with the player avatar. There was simply no element of the game that was made simpler than Xenoblade 1, and then on top of that, a billion new elements were added to make the game even more confusing. And finally, the game just simply looked too different from the other games. While new things aren't bad, and it's obviously good to experiment, I had felt very comfortable with the main Xenoblade games and didn't feel ready to tackle such a different experience. The large interconnected world was cool and all, but then the sci-fi element was just so different. The idea of a side quest focused story over a main story was pretty worrying, and the small bit of music I had heard did not sound particularly great, which isn't exactly a positive sign when it comes to Xenoblade. With the announcement of Xenoblade 3 though, I decided it was finally time. Xenoblade X was not going to be ported anytime soon, and I feel I really needed to familiarize myself with the whole series before tackling such an important game as Xenoblade 3. And so, I finally got it. I got a UAE copy of the game for $60, which is insane considering this game is now 7 years old, and after waiting 2 hours for the data packs to download, after deleting basically everything on my Wii U, I finally started it up. That brings us to the main question of the video. Is Xenoblade X good? Well, now that I have put 80 hours into the game and have finished all the main story chapters, I can say with full confidence that, acknowledging all of its faults and its clearly unfinished story, I love this game. I personally believe there are 4 main elements to the game's visuals that need to be addressed: the exploration, technical quality, the characters, and the UI. And I definitely have some opinions on these, let's just say that. Let's start with exploration, which I have so much to say about that I'm going to make it its own section. Now, despite all my worries prior to playing the game, I knew then, and still know now, that this game's world is absolutely phenomenal. Xenoblade has always been known for fantastic, monolith-soft world design! But Xenoblade X is just simply on another level. The game is split up into 6 main areas: New Los Angeles, the central suburban town of the game; Primordia, the grassy-type starter area; Oblivia, the desert; Noctilum, the jungle; Sylvalum, the snowy area; and Cauldros, the lava-based final area. Now, if I were to just tell you these 6 areas, you'd assume Xenoblade X's world is fairly basic and uninteresting. And I mean, yeah, these area themes are admittedly nothing all that special and are pretty traditional RPG fare. What makes Xenoblade X particularly unique though, is the attention to detail and the interconnectedness of the world. Every enemy, or indigene as they are called in this game, has its own carefully chosen placement, with many doing special actions that actually make sense within the context of the world. You may see some larger creatures eating their prey, and you may see some flying around with majestic beauty, asserting clear dominance over every indigene there. It's also worth mentioning that Xenoblade X is one of the few open world games that is truly open world, in that no area is off limits. If you see it, you really can go there. These two elements combine to make Xenoblade X's world truly amazing, and it's unlike any other video game I've played. While we're on the topic, the game's core exploration is pretty fun as well. The game's controls are pretty solid, thanks to the huge low gravity jump and the sprint button, but obviously the big highlight with the exploration is the Skells. At a certain point in the game, you unlock the ability to control big mechs called Skells, and even later, they're given the ability to fly. These really open up the game and allow you to reach landmarks you couldn't reach before, allowing you to appreciate the world even more. I didn't mean to rhyme that, hang on, wait a minute. Then, this game has field skills, which may sound similar to a system in Xenoblade 2, except they are much better. The 3 field skills are mechanical, biological, and archaeological, and you can choose to upgrade one of them every time your blade level increases. You can then interact with objects you find scattered around the map to get credits, battle points, and other helpful items. It's just another neat system that makes the exploration a little bit more fun. One of the most unique mechanics though is the Frontier Nav system, which allows you to get a custom supply of credits and Meranium, another type of currency that can only be obtained via the system. Basically, as you go around the map, you can place data probes at specific spots in order to increase your Meranium gain or provide support in battle. The system can be pretty tedious, but it is unique and it gives some nice functionality to the gamepad. The only real issue I have with the exploration is the map. For some reason, they decided to split it up into a grid of hexagonal shapes, and I am not really a fan. I get that the grid is necessary for the Frontier Nav system, but I don't really get why they decided to have everything on the map tied to the grid, and I also just don't get why they chose hexagons. It just feels awkward and unnecessarily complicated. But nevertheless, Xenoblade X's exploration and world design are absolutely phenomenal, and I'd easily say that this game does both of those the best. There's a chance that could change with Xenoblade 3, as that game is looking absolutely phenomenal as well, but for now, Xenoblade X is easily the champion. Oh, and a side note, I really like the follow ball. It's a really great mechanic, and I like that Xenoblade 3 is bringing back a similar navigation system, although I can't remember who gives it to you. I don't know, it's probably not anyone important, I guess, if I can't remember. On a technical level, Xenoblade X does feel slightly held back, but it is still incredibly impressive. It is a universally accepted fact that the Wii U was underpowered hardware for its time, and people should not buy the console for games with incredible looking graphics. Despite that, Monolith Soft still decided to go all in with the visuals and use every last bit of optimization possible to make an incredible looking game. According to the Digital Foundry analysis, this game runs at a fairly consistent 30 FPS at 720p, which is honestly good enough. The game's frame rate does have some dips, but overall it's quite consistent, and the resolution was never really an issue. The biggest issue here is texture and object popping in NLA and the open world areas. It's pretty infrequent, but there was one time where I got stuck in an object because its collision loaded in after I was standing where it should have been, and I had to use fast travel to get out. Aside from that though, this game is very impressive and is a technical marvel considering the hardware. I mean, the game is so big that you can download data packs on the eShop in order to make the game load faster. I waited like 2 hours just for that, and the loading screens were never an issue, which again is insane considering the hardware. While I have been pretty positive in terms of visuals so far, I can't really say I feel similarly with the characters. Some positives though. I do like how you have the ability to create your own avatar, and I also like how you're able to change it at any time. It doesn't have as much customization as, say, Monster Hunter or anything, but it's still quite a bit, and I like how all the characters feel natural and fit within the context of the world. I also really like how you can change the fashion gear for all characters. There's a lot of customization here, and it's nice that you don't have to worry about not liking a character's default outfit as long as they're a party member. Unfortunately though, the basic character designs and character models are pretty rough. I get that the point is to have the fashion gear system cover the basic outfits, but it's pretty disappointing to see every other character wearing just generic default outfits. And while I don't normally comment on models in-game, here I just have to point out that they look weird. It's not a big deal, but it is occasionally immersion breaking, and I wish they looked more refined. Don't get me wrong, the other Xenoblade games do have their fair share of weird looking models, but at least the core characters look solid. The models in Xenoblade X just look consistently fine, and I just wish everyone looked nicer. At least the indigents all look amazing. Honestly, the Telethia have never looked better. Now for the UI. Oh no. Oh no 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 no! In what world is text this small acceptable? Probably like Mira or something. Seriously, if you think that Xenoblade 3's UI is messy or cluttered, then you definitely have not played Xenoblade X. There's really just a lot of small issues that add up. For some reason, the HP and TP of your player character are displayed on the screen twice. The game feels the need to tell you the exact weapon you have active right now rather than just a symbol. The game uses words to display position rather than just using arrows, etc. None of these are inherently big issues on their own, but they all add up for a worse visual experience. I mean, I just don't get how they thought a UI this small was acceptable when they want to have the entire game playable on just the Wii U gamepad. If this game ever gets a port, the UI is like the highest priority thing they need to address. So to recap, despite its issues, Xenoblade X is still a very impressive game. I definitely think a solid port / remaster would do this game wonders and turn it into the true visual masterpiece it is definitely capable of becoming. But for right now, it's a little rough. Alright, I have a question for you. What happens when you give the Attack on Titan composer, Hiroyuki Sawano, the job to compose a Xenoblade soundtrack? Well, apparently, it's dumb, unintelligible English, and German lyrics, the weirdest techno and bit crush sounds ever created, and also the greatest and most epic orchestral tracks you have ever heard in your entire life. I know those all sound very different from each other, but honestly, Xenoblade X has one of the greatest soundtracks I have ever heard in a video game, which I believe is actually a fairly unpopular opinion to have. Now, I don't necessarily think it's as good as Xenoblade 2's soundtrack, but it's definitely the most musically creative and genius of the series for many reasons. Xenoblade X's setting is fairly unique, as it takes place on an alien planet and you play as humans from Earth. Because of this unique setting, I actually really appreciate a lot of the weird sounds and instrument choices made by Sawano, as they help emphasize this alien and different feeling to the whole game. A track like Gower Plains wouldn't work in Primordia, and Tadpole just wouldn't work on Sylvalum. Sawano's musical genius is essential to the core of the game, and really helps emphasize the unique direction Xenoblade X goes in. I get that some people strongly dislike the lyrics, and I will admit, it's not that great in some tracks, like NLA Night and the regular Black Tar battle theme. But honestly, the cheese of them has really grown on me, and I find myself humming along to some of these fantastic melodies constantly. Here, I'll just play you a few of my favorite tracks and let you decide for yourself. If you want the too long didn't watch for this part, let's just say this is the part of the game that I consider to be the most unfinished. Essentially, nothing really happens in Xenoblade X's main story. There are 12 chapters in the game, and to be entirely honest, only the last 2 have any meaningful story developments. Most of the game's interesting story and content is in the side quests, with the main story only really serving as a catalyst to set up for those side quests. I will say though, that the game's premise is insanely cool. Basically, Earth was destroyed due to an ongoing war involving an alien race called the Gangland and another race called Ghosts, which literally do not show up beyond the prologue. Hopefully you are already able to tell why this game's story is unfinished, because how could you have an alien race that looks this cool and literally have them do nothing beyond the opening cutscene? Anyway, the United States government launched a backup plan to preserve humanity, and they ended up crashing onto an alien planet called Mira. And so now, it's up to you and your team to explore the planet Mira and find the Lifehold Core to preserve humanity in its last stand. The whole story is a game of survival, the remnants of humanity desperately clinging on to their last bit of hope. But again, beyond the sick premise, there just isn't anything of note that happens. The only things I can really remember in the story outside of its premise and ending are the cool looking sci-fi fights. But there's no interesting story developments here, they just look awesome and are animated well. As for the reason for this, well, we may kinda know. I'm going to be mostly going off of the official Iwata Asks interview, as well as this Reddit post that links some key things from the artbook, so thank you very much to this user right here. But yeah, the main idea is that there's a ton of cut content in Xenoblade X, and unfortunately, it's not just unimportant side quest stuff. The big thing that changed during development was the addition of online gameplay, which apparently was added fairly late. One of the big things this caused was the change from a protagonist that has their own story and voice acting to a silent, customizable avatar. Now, this change to an avatar has its own benefits, but overall, this seemed to cause a lot of changes to the game's main story, and I believe is a part to why it is the way it is. I mean, Shulk and Rex have the most focus in their respective games of story, so I would assume the hero, the protagonist before they changed to the avatar, had a pretty solid character. It was a central part of the main story, having a good amount of development throughout the game to compensate for the lack of activity. I'm guessing that maybe after removing the hero, they just didn't really have a story left, and this is basically the result we have. But there are also some other things as well. In the announcement trailer for the game, a face was shown which doesn't show up in the actual game. This figure kinda looks like Shulk, kinda. So it is a possibility that this game was supposed to be a sequel to the first game and Shulk would return in some way. But also, this game was announced to just be called X, and wasn't originally a Xenoblade game, so maybe it wasn't actually supposed to be a spin-off sequel of the Xenoblade series, it was just supposed to be something else entirely. We don't really know what's the true story. And I mean, all of these theories and ideas I have could be entirely false. Maybe this is what the story was always going to be like, and the hero never really had any impact on the plot. At the end of the day, who knows? But what's most important is that in its current state, the main story is not particularly great and doesn't have anything notable that happens. It is really just a disappointingly weak story that had some really cool ideas but doesn't live up to any of them. Even the main story characters, Lynn and Elma, don't really have much going on. I mean, there's a few interesting things, but it's all very subtle and generally not as good as the characters in other Xenoblade games. There's also one character that I just absolutely despise, just completely hate, and I cannot talk. I'm getting ahead of myself here. You know what? Let's just move on before I become... That was a really bad joke. I'm sorry. Actually, one more thing before I move on. The ending is really weird. I can't really get into too many details for the sake of spoilers, but wow, I have never been so conflicted over an ending in a game. It has some pretty big cliffhangers and mysteries that were definitely put in there to be addressed in a sequel, but like, it's been 7 years now and there's been nothing. Let's just hope there's a sequel at some point soon, because the wait is just killing me. Now, if only there was another part to the game where there were actual interesting stories told. Alright, let me just tell you why Xenoblade X's side quests are good. So, there's one quest in the game where a guy asks you to repair a skull he has, so you're asked to go and get some materials. Then a Monon, one of the many alien races in this game, comes up to you and says that he has a much better way to repair the skull with a more efficient item. So that you get that item, you give it to him, but he says that he will only repair the skull for you if you give him a specialty product from Earth. So you go and get some food, and his favorite ends up being frozen pizza. Just frozen, not microwave or heated in any way, nope, just a basic frozen pizza. A frozen pizza for the most advanced technology humans have ever seen. And the best part, This isn't even the best side quest in the game, and it's already infinitely better than anything in the main story. As you can tell, this game's side quests are amazing. They can be hilarious, emotional, and sometimes even pretty impactful, telling good messages for life. Xenoblade 1 and 2 had pretty weak side quests overall. I mean, Torna and Future Connected were better, but overall, X easily has the best side quests in the entire series. They are split up into 4 different types: story missions, affinity missions, normal missions, and basic missions. Story missions are your 12 story chapters, and again, they're pretty whatever, but once we get to affinity missions, things get a lot more interesting. Affinity missions are fully voice-acted missions that involve main story characters or party members, and basically act as this game's heart-to-heart system. I mean, heart-to-hearts are in this game also, but they're not as good, to be honest, and I think in my 80 hours, I only did like 3, one of them entirely accidentally. There's 17 permanent party members in this game, and most of them have affinity missions, so there's a lot of content to dig into here. You do have to grind affinity with party members in order to do more character-specific ones, and that is annoying. But still, the system is awesome as it allows you to get a great look into some of the characters and gives them a ton of great development. But there are still a lot of NPCs too, and so that's where the normal missions come in. These are not voice acted and are basically like Xenoblade 1 and 2 side quests, but they are still super good. Even though they aren't voice acted, you still shouldn't sleep on some of the amazing stories and characters that come from these. This is where the pizza side quest I mentioned earlier fits in. These side quests are also where you can meet a lot of different alien races that don't show up anywhere else. It's pretty cool that there's so much world building and lore in these side quests, and they don't just serve as meaningless fetch quests. But I mean, there is still value to fetch quests, and that's where basic missions come in. These can be accepted at the mission control terminal and have 3 types: bounty, gathering, and social. Bounty basically involves killing something, whether it be a regular indigent or a stronger tyrant. Gathering involves getting an item, either from an enemy or through collection points, and social involves talking to someone, either to lead it to a normal mission, or affinity mission, or for some other reason. These are good sources for quick XP, credits, and affinity, and while they don't have any meaningful stories, it's still nice that they exist and are separated from the other quests. Another thing, with affinity missions and normal missions, you really get to see one of the advantages of having Cross as the protagonist. In some missions, you will be required to make a decision regarding something in the side quest, and depending on what you choose, the quest can play out very differently. Like, there's some side quest chains that will literally end if you choose the wrong option, because one of the characters will die from that. It's pretty cool, honestly, and I like having the feeling of actual choice, especially since a lot of RPGs I've played pretend to give you choice, while really having no choice at all. Gameplay wise, most side quests aren't honestly all that special. I mean, even the affinity missions and normal missions objectives can be boiled down to the 3 categories: bounty, gathering, and social. The biggest issue here is that the game only uses objective markers for bounties and social objectives, but not for gathering. This means if you have to obtain an item from a certain enemy, or you have to get a collectible from somewhere in the world, you either have to run around everywhere and search for hours, or just look it up. I often did the latter, and I encourage you to do the same. Xenoblade X's world is so big, and I really do not understand why they couldn't have just programmed in objective markers for collectibles. I assume the reason is that collectibles aren't decided until after you run up to them, but even then, just rework how the collectibles are actually generated and have it work like Definitive Edition. But still, the side quests in Xenoblade X are really awesome, and I strongly encourage you to do as many as you can. I do kind of regret playing Xenoblade X in this time crunch of a series, because it meant I focused a lot on the main story and didn't get to do as many side quests as I would have liked. But after finishing Xenoblade 3, I definitely expect to come back to Xenoblade X and play even more of this game. I mean, there's just so many stories left to experience, and I'm really pleased with how the side quests turned out in this game. In my Why You Should Care video on Xenoblade, I said that Torna had the best combat in the series. Now, I wasn't counting Xenoblade X in that discussion, but I also wasn't that far in the game and couldn't definitively say that it was my favorite. After playing the game a lot though, I can easily say now that Xenoblade X has the best combat in the series, and maybe even one of the greatest real-time combat systems in any JRPG. The fundamentals from Xenoblade 1 are all here: auto attacks, the art scroll wheel, buffs and debuffs, and... oh, wait, that's actually just it. I mean, there's similar mechanics here. Morale level is essentially tension points are basically the party gauge, and many arts act similarly and have similar bonuses to arts in Xenoblade 1. But basically everything is new here, beyond just the basic methods of attacking. For example, in this game, every character has a melee and ranged weapon that can be changed at any time, Aggro has been removed, or heavily de-emphasized to the point that I think it's just random. Party members are given 2 weapons from classes, rather than just having their own unique weapon. Skill trees have been removed, and now skills can be chosen and leveled up individually, with class rank being added, and etc. The combat feels super different from the first game, which is honestly a good thing. Don't get me wrong, Xenoblade 1 is a very fun game and all, but I definitely find Xenoblade X to be way more enjoyable, due to the sheer number of new stuff here. Cross is super customizable with a ton of different arts, skills, and classes, being able to wield any weapon in the game. You can even customize which ranged and which melee weapon they have too. You're not just locked to the class you're using. I personally use Duelist for the main story, but after the main story, I leveled up the Winged Viper route and used the Longsword from Duelist and the Dual Guns from Full Metal Jaguar combined with some skills from both to create a really awesome Overdrive setup. Oh, and yeah, Overdrive, this game's replacement for chain attacks. After building up 3,000 tension points, you can use this new mechanic called Overdrive, which in my opinion is the best mechanic in the Xenoblade series yet, and one of my favorite video game mechanics ever. It's really hard to explain everything, but to explain it simply, you can combo arts together depending on whether they're ranged or melee, and their color, which can increase the counter in the middle and grant you more damage, shorter cooldown, and other effects. This mechanic has so much depth beyond what I'm explaining, and with the right setups, you could literally decimate super bosses that you're supposed to do with skills in literal seconds on the ground. It is kinda broken and can allow you to choose like any boss in the game, but man is it a fun mechanic. I didn't even really understand it until about chapter 11, but once you do get the hang of it, you can create some crazy setups. Also, the Overdrive theme completely slaps. I briefly mentioned it, but yeah, you can also use skills in combat as well. These are pretty fun in the main story and allow you to do some massive damage to enemies, but they do kinda become irrelevant for non-flying enemies once you master Overdrive. They also have really long cooldowns and there could be lots of downtime in battle, so I just prefer using skills for exploration rather than for combat, especially since the prices for them are so high. Maybe after I play the game more and start getting better skills, I can find more fun with them, but for now, they're neat additions that I just don't use that much in combat. So yeah, Xenoblade X's combat is super fun, it has a lot of depth to it. One issue is that despite the large number of party members in the game, Cross is the only character that's actually useful. Most of the time, I just kinda left my party members to do whatever, not really equipping them with super good skills or just taking advantage of soul voices whenever those appear for HP. But still, you could do so much with Cross that it's really not a big deal. There's also no Nopon party member in this game, but the Nopon character in the maid party is the most dumb thing I have ever— Nope, relax. Everything will be okay. One more thing. This is a warning for everyone that's going to be playing Xenoblade X right here. In the final chapter, when you are outside the thing, you'll know when you get there, make sure you save, as that is a point of no return, and if you can't beat the final boss, you will need to go back to your last save point. This is important as this game does not have autosaves. Thank me later. So, hopefully you can tell by now that I really love Xenoblade X, despite its many flaws. Of all my worries prior to playing this game, only one of them actually came true, and that was unfortunately the main story. Outside of that, I really loved so much about this game, but I wish I could recommend it more. Despite the fact that it's 7 years old now, this game is still $60 and locked on the Wii U. If you don't own a Wii U, then this game is certainly not worth it. But even if you do, it's still a very alienating game, and I do think there will be a lot of Xenoblade 1 and 2 fans that wouldn't really like it that much. But conversely, I think there are a lot of people that don't like the main series of Xenoblade that would really love this game. I don't know, it's a weird game, and to be honest, I do really dislike some elements of it. But I still have to give this game a very strong 4 out of 5. If you could get it, it's really going to be worth your time, and it's a game you could easily put hundreds of hours into. I've put 80 in, and I constantly have a strong urge to go back into the game and put in some more hours to do more side quests and explore the map more. So, give it a shot. You know, it's a good thing there are only a few things I dislike about this game, and nothing I really hate. Like, seriously, if they messed up the Nopon in this game or something, that would be really terrible. Oh no. You know what? I've neglected this for far too long, and it's time I finally acknowledge it. Tatsu. Oh, how I hate Tatsu. Nopon were so great in Xenoblade 1, Riki is just the absolute best, man. Like, the localization team at Nintendo of Europe just got his voice acting right, and his writing and dialogue. It's amazing. He's so adorable, and I love him and his character. It's just great, right? Then, Nintendo of America 8-4 comes in here like, oh hey, look, a Nopon. Why don't we just completely ruin him? Also, let's pronounce it Nopon for no reason at all. Because yeah, we just hate the Nopon.
I guess you're right. Okay then.
Aw, I love Rock. He's such a great guy. Yeah, thumbs up. Man, you know, Rock is just such a great character. Like, I really hope there's no other bad character that has to appear in this scene and just completely ruin everything. Because, like, that would really be unfortunate. That would honestly, like, alone, make me remove some points from this game. I'm not gonna lie.
There's nothing!
You shut the f up! Sir. You shut the f.
Lin makes this joke, food joke, about cooking Tatsu. And I'm not kidding. It is the only joke about Tatsu, because Tatsu has nothing interesting. And it is repeated before every main story chapter. This joke got old before Lin even said it the first time. Also, he literally runs away from all fighting. Like, you had Riki here, the absolute Giga Chad, fighting in battle and doing everything he can to contribute. And then Tatsu just runs away like a little idiot and then has the audacity to call the team Team Tatsu. Like, shut up! You didn't do anything. You are only kept because you can provide some information to the team every once in a while. And I mean every once in a while. Like, you barely even do that.
2/3 of this image is the greatest thing I have ever seen in my life. And then they decided to put Tatsu there.
There's a scene in Chapter 6 also, and in this scene, Tatsu and L, another alien in the game, are explicitly advised to not join them on the adventure, because if they did, then the party would all die. Can't really get into specifics, but yeah, that's what happens. So, L decides to stay back because he's a real one, but then this freaking idiot Tatsu decides to just go in anyway, regardless of the fact he was warned already to not go, and just put everyone's lives in danger. Like, could you be more idiotic? The one time you have to do anything, and it's literally to do nothing, and you still can't even do it. Like, how dumb do you have to be? I mean, this does lead to, like, the Telethia scene, which was really sick, but I still hate Tatsu, okay? Oh, and then you also think it's okay to just take Riki's biter and make it an essential part of your design? Like, no, that's not okay. You can't do that. You aren't even a fraction as good as him. Why are you trying to imitate him in any way, shape, or form? I just hate you so much! Ah! Anyway, yeah, Xenoblade X. It's a 4 out of 5. Amazing game. Go play it. Like, seriously, really great stuff here. But that's if you ignore Tatsu. If you include him, that would be a few points taken off. Probably like minus 11 points for that. Anyway, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you next time in the series with Xenogears. Have a great day.